Raila Odinga was made envoy for the African Union for roads and infrastructure. I believe that was. This is big. AU Commission Chair is big, and we'll get to what that means in a moment. But, you know, what are your initial thoughts around this new revelation?
Quite a big move to gun for the position of the chairperson of the Africa Union Commission, which is the administrative wing of the AU. But of course, in Kenya, the whole thing is being read and interpreted in the local context of what it means. Raila Odinga, 5-time presidential contender. Raila Odinga, former AU commissioner in charge of infrastructure, and now in an administration that you know, he comes from a very closely contested election 1.5 years ago, and now he's got together support of President William Ruto and the government that he leads for his candidature to be viable. It has to, first of all, really enjoy the backing of home. So this comes as a surprise to some, and not as a surprise to others, because obviously it's being interpreted as a handshake move, where Raila Odinga, after an election, has to be taken off the scene to do something else, keep him busy elsewhere. But beyond busy, AU Commission Chairperson is a very big deal, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, and so let's do that, because I mean, compared to the role that he had before, this is a highly administrative role. Jamila, you know, tell us about what the AU Commission Chair actually does, and perhaps some history as to some of the people who've held this position before.
As Lena said, the African Union Commission Chairperson is the topmost official of this continental bloc. And I think it's important that we don't confuse the African Union Commission Chairperson with the African Union Chairperson. Remember, this one is an annual ceremonial one which rotates between heads of state and governments. But now the African Union Commission Chairperson, which is the post you're talking about now, is like the CEO of the AU Secretariat, and elected every 4 years, and its mandate is renewable once. And if you all remember, when we used to have the Organization of African Union, but OAU.
Just talk about it. It's okay.
Nice one.
Okay, fine. Under the old OAU Organization of African Union, the position used to be called Secretary General.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was slightly weaker powers then. But then since 2002 now, they've appended the roles of the OAU to become the African Union, and now this Commission Chairperson is like kiongozi pale, administrative. They talk about all those perks that he'll get with the job, including the salaries and the allowances and all that. But remember that this commission, this holder is responsible for the commission's administration and finances. He's supposed to promote, he or she, promote and popularize the AU's objectives and enhance its performance. More importantly, he's supposed to consult and coordinate with key stakeholders. Those are member state development partners and the regional economic blocs. But you need to remember that since 2002, there have been 5 commission chairpersons. Musa Faki Mahamat is the first to hold the position for 2 consecutive terms, the current one since 2017. His term ends this year. That's why now there are people gunning for the job. Previous chairpersons include South Africa's Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma from 2012 to 2022. Then there's Jean Ping of Gabon, who was the chairperson between 2008 and 2012. And then there was Alpha Omar Konare of Mali, 2003, 2008. Amara Essi of Cote d'Ivoire led the transition now between OAU and AU in 2002 and 2003. They're elected by secret ballot, Yvonne and Tim, as opposed to the assembly chairperson who's chosen by consensus. And they must garner 2/3 of the majority of the present voting members. Currently, Sudan, Mali, Niger, Guinea, and Burkina Faso are suspended, of course, for coups. They are not counted. But since 2012, the AU expanded its commission to include 8 members, the chairperson, deputy chairperson, and 6 commissioners. So this candidate has at least 3 months. So you're supposed to umeweka jina lako pale, umesema I want to run, and the candidates and the deputy, and because he has to run with someone who they want as deputy, they come watu wawili pamoja. So they have to circulate the names to the member state at least 3 months before the election. So there's all this process that's been there, and it's been done 5 times before. Just that now, I don't know if my history, Linus, maybe you may be able to correct me, if we really had a strong Kenyan candidate during that period to actually try to run for this seat, because you look, most of these were people in the West and in the South who've held this very important position in the African Union. So as you see, Yvonne, it's a really, really big deal.
Yeah, it really is driving the implementation agenda of the African Union, definitely a busy one. But of course, Sam, then, people say, so was this perhaps some secret dealings or agreements in the NADCO report that is set to be adopted, formally in the House, that has just reconvened this week back from the long recess. But, these are sort of the backroom, deals that you get to see. I mean, and also what it means, I guess, for him politically.
Right. There's been a lot of speculation leading to this, of leaders even starting to discuss and debate what should happen come 2027. Of course, it's still more than 3 years away to the election, but we have seen the jostling that has been going on between some of the political leaders within the Azimio coalition. And privately, you'll hear conversations of people saying that there's a possibility that Raila Odinga might be gunning for the AU Commission Chairperson position. Now, clearly, it's no longer a rumor. It is real because he has made that communication clear. And then that now gives a lot of credence to what sort of information has been coming out from those conversations. So you hear people saying that the chances of some of those persons that have been mentioned that may be seeking to be presidential candidates in 2027 also depend on what Raila Odinga will be doing. So if he is to go for this seat and get it, clearly you know that he cannot be available for deployment in the 2027 election. And then if he wants to come and run, then he would have to leave office. That would be the AU Commission Chairperson if he gets elected. But now it opens the game, to everyone. So the jostling that has been going on within the Azimio coalition, you'll hear more about it. But then there's that part, because for you to bid for that seat, it helps to also be backed by your government. Yeah. In fact, I think you have to be backed by your government for you to be a candidate for that seat. And that's why, if you remember, when Ambassador Amina Mohammed, then Cabinet Secretary, was gunning for that seat, there was a serious campaign that was undertaken by the government of Kenya to different regional blocks and all the way to the election. And remember that time that they were voting between Amina, I think it was with Nkosazana, Right. So you remember even the voting and how the outcome was. There was a lot of hope that Amina Mohammed was going to get it. So for Raila Odinga to be backed by President William Ruto and the government of Kenya, there has to be some bit of negotiation that has gone on there. And therefore, even as you talk about the NADCO report, of course, the agreement may not be contained in the NADCO report, but the spirit of this issue about running for AOC chairperson must be there. And therefore, even looking at the structure of it, the recommendations that you're going to create certain positions of the leader of official opposition or even the position of prime minister, then you can start to imagine there are certain figures that are being viewed. People are coming up with these sort of proposals with certain names in mind, and of course we'll be waiting to see how that pans out. But it's going to be very interesting, also looking at the sort of activity that Raila Odinga has had in January 2024, popularizing ODM, going for grassroots mobilization, saying that you want to revamp the party. Every party is strengthening itself within Azimio Lomoja coalition. It's not innocent. Something must be going on, knowing that soon he might be busy to go and campaign for this position. Yeah,
Linus.
Look, Yvonne, I don't know, and but I feel NADCO should be such a small thing in the big scheme of things when it comes to what is going on at the African Union. So if Kenyans, for example, are actually gunning for the position of chairperson of AU Commission just so that you sort out NADCO issues, then I must say it's really unfortunate, because AU itself is a tough environment, a very competitive diplomatic space. People strategize not based on narrow national issues down there, but on the bigger scheme of things. And I think Kenya missed out the last time with Amina Mohamed being the candidate, because you could tell, and I think we had that discussion here,
yeah, we did,
just about the approach that we are taking with the campaigns.
Yeah, we were a little chest.
Yeah,
there was quite a bit of chest involved.
There was chest and
as opposed to diplomacy. Yeah,
it's diplomacy.
Yeah.
It's very highly refined. Who are your peers that you are talking to? So if we make the same thing, the same mistake of approaching that the way we approach it, roadside, open a sunroof and stuff like that, it won't get anywhere.
All right. On that, and I want you to just continue on that thread, I want us to listen to, because let's talk about that campaign now and what that could possibly look like. As Raila Odinga was making, his announcing his candidature for that position, he was backed by former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo. Let's listen to him sort of endorsing Raila for this position.
I have no doubt in my mind that my friend could easily be a viable candidate. But that, of course, is subject to the views, feelings, and, of course, the position and the presentation of our leaders in the East African sub-region. We need a person, man or woman, who has experience, who understand the situation we are in, who comes from a background that can make a difference.
All right, so there's definitely intrigues that happen on this continental stage. What are those dynamics that, we're going to face? One, what do we need to do differently? Because we've been here before with Ambassador Amina Mohamed. And of course, on the continental stage, there's other intrigues and political dynamics. There's Anglophone versus Francophone. There's, North versus South. There's East versus West. So what are those dynamics that, they're going to have to overcome or get through if this bid would be successful?
A successful bid must navigate all those dynamics, including individual member states and winning the vote of each individual member state. Now, when you look at Africa and the African Union, we have 5 regions. We have East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, North Africa, and South Africa. And there is the 6th one, which is silent, which is the diaspora, the African diaspora. And in all these spaces, there are also economic blocs that have different interests. ECOWAS is very powerful in West Africa. Then there's the Sahel region as well. And you have to engage these bodies and make sure they're all comfortable with your candidature. The other thing, of course, is the dynamics of the Francophone versus Anglophone African politics. And of course, there's a smaller element of the Portuguese speaking and of course the Spanish speaking, which are smaller in number because of the number of states that were colonized by Spain and Portugal. But when it comes to Anglophone and Francophone, in my own view, the Amina Mohamed candidature, for example, got a big blow when it did not garner a lot of the Francophone vote. And then a lot of that went to the current AU Commission Chairperson. So there's all this that needs to be navigated. And it all boils down to, first, national interests of individual states, and then 2, regional interests of those particular states. Remember, AU they've tried to model it along the European Union. And that was the mission, basically, to make it more efficient than the precursor, the OAU. And I was privileged, actually, to cover the transition through a series of meetings in Lome, Cairo, and Addis before it went to Johannesburg, to Durban, where now the new AU became a reality. But there's always a question of whether the old it really ever left. And when you look at even how the dynamics of selecting, especially the Secretariat, the old factors, including the Francophone versus Anglophone, are still very much alive.
Indeed. So we'll see what happens, because the next chair of the AUC takes over in 2025. It's a 4-year term, renewable only once. So that would take him, if he is successful, from 2025 into 2029, just for local politics. That would mean, well, of course, he can choose to leave the AUC chairperson's position if he does. But, you know, there's also the thing about when you are AUC chair, you cannot be involved in local politics of your country. So that's something interesting. You have under a minute, Sam.
Yes,
I have to take a break.
It's a correction. I insinuated that Amina Mohammed lost to Zuma. No, she was seeking to succeed Zuma. She lost to Moussa Faki.
Yeah.
That's right.
By 26 votes against 38.
Well, yeah, so there you have it. We shall see how this one goes in the coming days. But listen, we had a guest gangster, that was Mike Okinyi. We have another guest gangster for you for our next conversation. It's all about the economy. The dollar, or rather the Kenya shilling, has gained quite some ground against the dollar. What does that mean? Our guest gangster tonight is someone who's not a stranger to NEWSGANG, Dr. Abraham Rugo, who is the country manager for International Budget Partnerships Kenya, that's IBP. He's joining us to tell us just what is happening with the Kenya shilling, how long can this last, and what is the state of our economy? Are we on the upward trajectory? He's joining us here on NEWSGANG in just a moment. Don't go too far, we'll be right back.